Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of This Week in Hearing. I'm Brian Taylor, and today's topic is improving the quality of life of at-risk seniors. And joining us today to discuss this topic is Andrew Hebert, who's the Chief Operating Officer of a new company out there called Eversound Technology. Andrew is a longtime veteran of the hearing industry. I think a lot of you are probably familiar with his name, and I'm happy that he's able to join us on This Week in Hearing to talk about his new company. Welcome, Andrew.
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate you having me on.
Well, like I said in my brief introduction, you are a veteran of the hearing care industry, so maybe you can kind of refresh us on your background.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going on 15 years in hearing healthcare now. I started with EarQ back in 2008. I was one of the original employees there. At EarQ, we were providing business and marketing solutions for independent hearing healthcare practices. So I literally traveled all over the country, met with hundreds of clinics, everything from local audiology clinics to universities, talked to them about how they were getting new patients into their practice, and met solutions that EarQ is offering with some of their challenges. So I was super fortunate there. Ed Keller, the founder of EarQ, gave me a lot of opportunities, probably ahead of my time, which I got to learn a lot over those years, and I really was fortunate to grow while the company grew. So I left EarQ as the president. So that's from a corporate side of things. Philanthropically, I helped start the Hear Strong Foundation, which recognizes the challenges of and the accomplishments of people that have overcome hearing loss. Tells their stories, is really meant to empower others to take action and do something about their hearing healthcare. Currently the chair of the board there. So that's a lot of fun to work on. My wife actually works on that project with me as well. And we have a lot going on there. So I'm not an audiologist, I'm not a hearing healthcare provider, but I'm definitely pretty involved in the industry.
Well, you understand the industry, that's for sure. And that experience, I would imagine, is invaluable with this new startup that you're with. Eversound Technology, do I have that right? I was on your website. It sounds like a really interesting company. So tell us a little bit more about Eversound.
Yeah, Eversound, when I was making the transition and looking for a new company to work with, really was looking for two things. One, wanted to make sure I was going to join an organization that was helping people. And two, wanted to find an organization that aligned with my values. And I found that in Eversound. They are a very values-driven organization. Dedication, teamwork, altruism is lived and breathed every day throughout the company. So back to the basics though, the company was founded back in 2015 by the CEO, Jake Reich. It was born out of the eCornell Business Accelerator Program. So Jake and two co-founders, Matt Reiniers, who's in charge of sales, and Devin Jameson, helped to start the company. One of the things that they all had in common was that they had aging loved ones that were going through some significant cognitive decline as a result of hearing loss. One of the grandmothers was in a senior living community. So they started to, that's kind of what turned them on to the idea. So they started doing research. They ended up going to approximately 100 locations, senior living communities in central and upstate New York. And just researching what's happening with regards to hearing loss in those communities. How's it impacting the residents, the day-to-day lives of the staff members as well. So the more they learned about it, they said, hey, there is a real big problem here. And that inspired the group wireless listening system as the solution that they came up with originally.
Okay, so so it's really not fair to say that it was a startup company since you've been around since 2015. I want to make sure I get that right. And Cornell University, Ithaca, New York, the Finger Lakes region. So
yep.
That's all really good to know. Tell us more about the devices that are available through Eversound.
Yeah, so the group wireless listening system, always good to explain that a little bit. One of the the big challenges in senior living is the majority of people have hearing loss. And, as you know, the minority of people that have hearing loss are using hearing aids today.
Right.
So you have a really big communication challenge there. The group wireless listening system is, if you think about 10 headphones that are all grouped together that link to one remote mic or transmitter that can broadcast sound out to the headphone system. So if an example is, if 10 residents want to play bingo, it's going to be a really challenging situation because the majority of them can't hear consistently the numbers that are being called. But if everybody wears the headphones, then the person calling the numbers can speak into the wireless microphone, and it can instantly amplify the sound out into to the residents so they can participate in the activity in the game. I know that you have a lot of HCPs that are watching. It's not the perfect audiological solution there, but it is a really good one, and it's really important because we're taking people out of their rooms where they might not participate in an activity because they can't hear and interact with the group, and we're empowering them to be able to actually participate in that group activity.
Yeah, I mean, think of all the people in your life that need hearing aids that don't have them, people that are in different types of assisted living environments. This sounds like a great alternative to traditional hearing aids for those that, for various reasons, don't wear them.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we are extending now, we're known within the communities that it's a hearing solutions company. So we are expanding into providing hearing aids to the residents with on-site hearing care.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about that. I know one of the things that I noticed, I think it was on your website, was it's a subscription model. And I'm just curious how you see Eversound, how it fits into the existing market for hearing devices.
Yeah, so there's, you got to kind of compartmentalize things. The subscription model is on the headphone system specifically. Mm-hmm. So on the headphone business, the customer is the senior living community. So it's the activity director who is actually subscribing to the Eversound membership. And then the consumer is the resident of the senior living that's actually using the headphone system. Mm-hmm. On the hearing aid side, now that we're branching out into providing the on-site hearing healthcare, that relationship is between Eversound and the resident. So that's a more traditional model where they actually purchase the hearing aids from us. We haven't done the subscription model for the hearing aids specifically.
So you have a headphone part of the business, and then you have a hearing aid part of the business, it sounds like.
Yep.
And how do hearing care professionals fit into this equation?
Yeah, so we employ hearing care professionals. We go on site and we provide facilitated telehealth care to the communities that we're working with. It's very similar to the VA model, where we have a trained professional that brings a group of equipment on site, and then we have a licensed hearing care professional that conducts the appointment via telehealth. We don't skip any steps of the process. We use a video otoscope to allow the hearing healthcare provider to look into the patient's ear. We do a full hearing test. We do bone conduction. In the event that we fit hearing aids, we do real ear measurement. So our goal is to provide a level of hearing care consistent with what resident would get if they were to go to offsite to a local audiology practice.
That's really interesting. I also noticed on your website that you have a lot of really strong educational support for seniors. So could you tell us a little bit about what that involves?
Yeah, absolutely. So we want to be known as an extension of the community staff. Communities staff have a lot of challenges right now. They're very busy, and we want to make our solutions as turnkey as possible for them. So with the content that we provide, it's essentially things like games that the residents can play. It's musical performances. It's group exercise content. that's all at the fingertips of the activity director. So there's literally hundreds of activities that they can select from and instantly be able to conduct a group activity with what we're providing them. And of course, it works also in conjunction with the headphones that we are providing. So in some ways, it's a little bit like the Peloton model where we're providing the hardware, which is the headphones, and we're also providing the content, which is all the different activities that we have there.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I also noticed that you had a really cool little tool on the website that allowed people to better understand how many people in their community might be affected by untreated hearing loss. I mean, to me, this is something that a hearing care professional could go on there and kind of look at that. Tell us more about the tool I'm referring to.
Yeah, so we think that hearing loss is a silent epidemic in senior living. And I'm not going to tell you anything that you don't already know, Brian, but it's invisible, right? So a lot of times the more visible things that are going on within the community and the residents are the things that are getting the attention. But just because it's invisible doesn't mean it's not important. And in what our effort was in developing this tool is we started compiling information, data, research out there, looking at things like the Hearing Journal or JAMA, and finding out some powerful statistics. So we found that there's a correlation of hearing loss and up to 5 times increased risk of dementia, up to 3 times increased risk of falls, and even up to 21% increased likelihood of death. These are really powerful, serious things that can happen as a result of not treating hearing loss and addressing some of the things that could be addressed. We compiled this information and put it in a way that would be easy for the executive directors and the executive staff at these communities to understand. So that way they could start addressing it. So we've gotten really good feedback from the tool as well, from the senior living communities. I think that it's enlightening in a lot of ways. It's something that on eversoundhq.com, anybody can go on and take a look at it. And we'd be happy to answer any questions if people want to reach out about the tool.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to you and the team there, because I think that's a really valuable tool. You kind of have tailored it, or people can tailor it to their community. You make it easy to do business, raising awareness, using data. I think that's all great stuff. Now, as you probably know, Andrew, we have a lot of people on our channel that are not hearing care professionals, that are consumers. So what are some things that you would want consumers to know about Eversound?
Yeah, so if you, or if either for yourself or for a family member and loved one, you're looking into senior living communities, ask them if they're currently an Eversound community and if they're using Eversound, because it can really benefit you, your family member, and the others within the community, and allow them to communicate more effectively with one another. And if the community isn't an Eversound member, they can always reach out to us via eversoundhq.com. And we'd love to get involved and help out. Our mission is to go out there and empower as many residents of senior living to participate in daily lives as possible. So, we'd be enthusiastic to help out there.
Yeah, when you think about all of the people that live in those kinds of facilities that need help with their hearing, I mean, it's a huge unmet need that we all, I think, need to focus on. So we appreciate that you're available and around as a company to help people out. So the last thing I wanted to ask you is, our biggest audience, of course, are hearing care professionals. So how do they get more involved with Eversound? What do they need to know from you? What can they learn, or where can they find more information about Eversound?
Yeah, so we're joining you in the battle of against untreated hearing loss, and we're really excited about it. And if you're looking to join a fun, altruistic company that's going to be helping thousands of people throughout the U.S. with their hearing health needs, look out for us on things like Audiology Online. You can reach out to us again through eversoundhq.com. We'd love to talk to you about what we're up to and what we're doing. We're going to be, as we continue to build and scale, we're currently in 1,200 locations throughout the US with our headphone model. And as we continue to build and scale the hearing health model, we're going to need to hire quite a few hearing care providers. So look out for us, and don't be shy to reach out.
Yeah, it sounds like you're going to need some hearing care professionals to help you out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, Andrew, thank you so much for taking the time to be on This Week in Hearing. We really appreciate it. And maybe down the road in 6 months or a year, we can have you back on to see and talk about all your great success in this area.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us on.
Yeah, my pleasure.